Okay, let's begin right now. Welcome, everyone, to the debut episode of Arena STL, covering the the third iteration of the Arena Football League. Tonight, for my debut show, I have a guest of someone that I know very well that has deep dive to everything alternative and spring football. You know him from the UFL show, the Round the UFL, and all sorts of arena football stuff, and also was on the Arena Football League podcast just last week. Zach Keilman. Hey, Zach.
Hey, Will, how's it going, dude? I've been looking forward to jumping on for this episode. It's kickoff week, man. It is finally here. Kind of crept up on us, and now it's kind of hard to believe it's less than 7 days, and 5 years of waiting and seeing what happens will come to fruition on April 27th, right after the draft.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, of all the best decisions for the Arena Football League to make, what is the best traffic for people to see on the NFL Network out of the season of regular season football for the NFL? The NFL Draft, of course. That is the
Yes.
best. Yes, and we'll discuss the TV here in a moment, and I would like to everyone welcome here. This is Arena STL, part of Fuel Sports Network and powered by Gateway City Sports. And of course, the first thing here is now we have to address, because see, my show is called Arena STL, so we kind of have to address the elephant in the room, as you can see, like, where is the STL Arena team? Because, Zach, when the AFL was announced, everyone was excited. Of course, I don't know, for some reason, the 2020 decade has been, hey, let's revise all these football leagues that came in the years before, because we had the XFL, then we had the USFL. Heck, the United Football League actually came in the 2010s, and now with the merger there. And now, because this is now the third iteration of the Arena Football League, we got the first one that started, dear Lord, almost about probably the age when we were born. Dear Lord, that's how old it is.
Good God, I know. It was already going at that point for me for 10 years. Well, actually 9 at that point. So I was born before its 9th season, so kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, of course, this isn't like the Jim Foster days. Of course, he was holding that league with his credit cards back then, dear Lord.
True.
And
so true.
yes, and of course, back then you had, like, no one really thought, like, he just came up with this big idea. It took a little bit, then it exploded really good, came down a little bit, then it came back, had some different rules than it is, because now this third iteration, we bring back to the original idea of the Ironman concept. Of course, there's only a few players that are either quarterbacks, they're able to come out, defense specialists come in, though according to the new rule book, we'll discuss that later, there might be a little bit of change when it comes to substitutions. So one thing though, what did you think when you heard last year when the Arena Football League was coming back?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When they originally did the announcement, I didn't know what to think. I had actually kind of been digging. I don't know. Will, you know how some of us are. We like kind of poking around websites and like all that. And there's some people that are even above that have more info than I do, that have even more diehard than I am about Arena, that had said, oh yeah, this is kind of in the works, but there wasn't like much movement on it. And then, kind of like mid-January, a few of us dug up some like website references to the AFL, and there were a few things like moving behind the scenes really small. Apparently they did like a early launch party in Vegas in like late 2022 to kind of like present it to investors and people. And then February rolls around and boom, it's out here. And that was cool. And the first few months were really active, went quiet in the summer for just like 3 months, and then they came back and started rolling teams out. But it's been rocky. You and I know it's been a little rocky on the launch. They have, stuff gets announced, but it's not as, say, perfectly announced. There's some things with the PRs that always look a little off at times, or you see announcements that have to get retooled or revamped. It's great that we're going to get another league competing. But I will say, for any public relations, they've had to definitely, they're going to have to prove themselves out of the gate, because there have been some moments they have definitely gotten people skeptical, to very much say the least, going in to launch here this week.
Yeah, like one thing here is like, here's Michael Lafer from the Player 54 podcast here. For us less knowledgeable, more casual Arena Football League fans, what should we naturally expect from the new Arena Football League?
Well, Mike, I love that. I'm glad that he's tuning in. It's good to see him, by the way, and shout out to, of course, everything he does with Player 54. I'm hoping he's doing the best right now. My thing with what you should expect if you're a new fan, I mean, I say approach this cautiously. This is not, I would say, if you're thinking this is AFL 1 or 2.0, it's not exactly that. There's a lot of optimism that ownerships and the league personnel have shown, but I will say that they put themselves in a massive crunch over the short period of time that they got this in order. And I know that the AFL announced in February they came back, but Lee Hutton's been on record saying that real progress on getting the league going really didn't start until mid to late summer last year. So they've really been kind of almost like, if you remember, I don't know if you will remember this, remember the European League of Football, and how within like 5 months they put together a league for season 1 and they just rolled with it. That's kind of what it feels like. There's a lot of good parts, but there's still stuff that you're going, are you sure that's okay? So cautious optimism is how I approach it. There's good teams in this league. I want to reiterate that, because a lot of times when we talk online, I feel like a lot of people just mash everything together and say, oh, this thing's complete garbage. Hey, there's some good rosters and owners on here that come from around the ethos of arena football. And I know some of the better NAL owners I like. Orlando joining up was great. The Albany folks that are owning it, that are before the AB decision, and the fact they got local owners to add on to that ownership group and not just Mike Quarta, is huge. It's a really professional organization. And Nashville is what I would say is the gold standard. If you can have that as the setup and get a base this year, see what you got, and keep building, that's how I approach it. I think there is a good base of teams. My hope is that all of them come back, but I'm being cautious because this is arena football. We know the history of the sport. It is volatile. But the hope is, if they can get a consistent base, which they have teams that I say can make a consistent base, and I say they have a majority of them I expect to stick around easily without any questions, then yeah, you can build something from that. Still some other stuff league-based wise, but I think cautious optimism, best opinion I can give you. And that's where I'm kind of at mentally right now too, leading into the first game.
Yeah, so when I get back to like our headline here, where's the STL team? Because in the summer last year, they put out that one video with all the markets they were in there, and not all of them made it to that final announcement in New York here in the fall and winter. One, of course, was St. Louis, though we had some rumblings from other people, but let me just give you a quick like history of arena football in St. Louis. Of course, everyone can see the shirt I'm wearing here. This, of course, is from the original Arena Football League team that we had here in the AFL with the St. Louis Stampede.
Classic shirt.
Very nice logo here. And I was shocked I was able to find a shirt in very good quality too. And they played only for 2 seasons in 95, 96, and owned by that Blues organization at the time before the Checkets era. Interesting though, they coached by Earl Bruce and Dave Earth, and strangely, only out of this team, only one Hall of Famer, and that was Darrell Hammond, wide receiver, linebacker. That's actually surprising. For only 2 years, you get one Hall of Famer for that short of existence. And the weird thing is, both years, they went to the playoffs, lost in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
They scored 49 points. That's it, but lost to 2 in the first season and 3 in the next season after that. Then it's like, man, It's like, and I guess the ownership of the Blues that time were kind of not really good financial straits, and that's when the Dave Check gets in. We won't revisit that here with the St. Louis Blues fans because we kind of know what happened there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what
Yeah,
it is. It's part of the history, but I'll tell you, it's funny and ironic that now the standard, at least if we're talking like, I wasn't going to bring up much IFL, but like, it's funny, you see the IFL, their standard is partnering up with NAL, at least affiliated owners, not all NAL owners or NHL owners. Like, for example, the Golden Knights are the main one. They have the Dallas Stars running the Frisco Fighters, but now you see like, ECHL owners getting in on the action with teams for the most part. And it's funny how stuff kind of, time is a circle sometimes. It's amazing how that works out. AFL though, little different. It's been mostly traditional, small time, I would say smaller time owners, but my understanding is the league kind of has its hand in the cookie jar in most, if not all, these ownerships. So it's almost like a pseudo one entity ownership with local on the ground people to focus on the local relations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then just go a little bit more because see, there's a little bit trend with arena football history in St. Louis. After that happened, then arena football came to the family arena in St. Charles with the St. Louis Renegades. Renegades, one of the most common names for football.
It feels like it.
Yeah, they started playing for the Indoor Professional Football League. Only had a record of 2-11. Then the IPFL folded. Then they went into the National Indoor Football League, and they then rebranded to the River City Renegades. When 1-13, then once again they rebranded again with new ownership, the Show Me Believers. And I was surprised, one of the owners of the Show Me Believers, because he was down to the faith, that's why they call it Believers, former Cardinals Hall of Fame pitcher Lou Brock.
That is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Crazy.
Then, unfortunately, that league that they were in, they had a history of basically taking people's money and run, unfortunately. Then they rebranded, then came the old River City Rage. And they actually were kind of part of the old days of the Indoor Football League. Then they stayed a few years, then they moved, unfortunately. Then we got a new team back in, but we got the name Missouri Monsters after buying rights from the original Kentucky Monsters. It's kind of weird how the battles of intellectual properties go here and there and everywhere. And then after that, they rebranded again in 2014 as the St. Louis Attack for the X League. And first year, they were undefeated and got to the national championship game with head coach Chris McKinney and owner Andrew Haynes. And they lost in the championship, but were named Coach of the Year and Owner of the Year. Then the following year, they started off kind of slow. The coach got fired. Then they hired a name that we'll talk a little bit soon, named Patrick Pimmel.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yes. And they kind of salvaged that season. Then that team was sold once again. And then it was rebranded once again to the hat I'm wearing here, the River City Raiders by Free Tickets Incorporated. Entertainment, sorry, by Kenny Noling. I went to a few of those games. This happened right after the St. Louis Rams left St. Louis. Interesting business model. You do pay for parking at the Family Arena, but the tickets were free. You still have to pay for merchandise, food, and all that. I am still kind of wondering how they made money off of that. Though he did the same thing with his drag racing and MMA. There were some problems. The first year, went to the playoffs, went to that game. They lost due to a very controversial calls. And following year, they ended abruptly with some type of rumor, couldn't go pay something type of fee with the league, and then that went dispersed. And the thing is, the shame here is I actually have the River City Raiders ball that they had when they were in the American Indoor Football League here. Signed and everything with all the players here. And it's a very nice ball, too.
Yeah, Baden does pretty good with the composite balls. Random thing I'll throw out here because I had that conversation this week, apparently. Skew for this, Will. Someone went on and we were having a debate on Facebook in Arena Football. Great place for debates, by the way, if you haven't caught my sarcasm. And they went, man, AFL's not using leather balls. It's a shame. I'm like, when have they used they haven't used leather in years. Like, for anyone that doesn't know, composite footballs are the norm in indoor. Like, they don't use leather because there's no weather out indoors. You don't need
Yes.
leather footballs. So for anyone complaining, that's like, I was amazed. And you see how this has kind of gone sometimes. It's like you see something come out, people talk about it, then you go, wait a minute, that's a standard everywhere else. Why are we complaining about this? And that's not everything, but like there's a lot of stuff like that I've had to deal with. I and some people have been like kind of bouncing around with. It's been kind of
Yeah,
wild.
and we got David Burnett on a very guy I know well, and he actually was a ticket holder for the original St. Louis
Mm-hmm.
Stampede in the mid-90s. Disappointed they couldn't stick around. Then he brought some actually interesting information. The River City Raid played in the first indoor bowl championship game of the current IFL. Sadly lost to the Billings Outlaws, another team we're going to mention.
Oh, I know. Yeah, the IFL's history, man, it is kind of amazing how it's ebbed and flowed with the comeuppance and all that. Like Billings, for God's sake, forever ago, being an IFL team and then getting revived as a CIF team, now an AFL team, but yeah, IFL's had a hell of a history. It's amazing how that works out sometimes, right?
Yeah, hey, Jersey. Yeah, the one thing, and then right after this, because see, this is how you and I kind of met in a little bit in the social, because this is actually the first time you and I are actually hearing each other's voices here, Zach.
It is actually. That's what's ironic. We've always talked online, but we've never actually gotten on a show.
Yeah,
So,
then
yeah.
some people have said if I actually had a beard, it looks like we actually might have common ancestry as a little joke to me, but it's possible. But
Okay.
and then right after the River City Race, then how you and I came together, there's something was called the National Gridiron League.
Yeah,
That-
we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
That deserves no speech. It's a scam league, same like their version
Yeah,
of the UFL.
but
what can you
I
do?
will mention just one thing. The head coach of that team was actually going to be Patrick Pimmel.
At one, I thought that was, wait a minute. I thought it was like more. It was at one point, right? Because I know there was a high school coach that was supposed to also be working in the St. Louis market. Maybe it was like when they revised like a year later. Am I wrong?
Well, there was a like when that whole first part of National Gridiron, like he was going to be like Patrick Pimmel was in a press conference. There was another high school coach. He's now coaching for the Lindenwood University, Corey Bethany. He was actually the first year of the River City Raiders head coach. So that could be him that you're referring to. That whole thing happened, and all of a sudden that just blown. And as I said, National Gridiron League is a scam. And if you hear anything, scam. So ignore. Then came a little bit later the St. Louis Bandits during COVID. And yeah. And then like it seemed good after a little bit. Then second year to try to join this league, and then they said they were playing the Family Arena. Then me and another person found out they're not playing in the Family Arena in St. Charles, and was just lying to people, and just how disappeared.
Yeah, I was actually sad that one kind of fell off because I thought there was going to be potential they could move up leagues because not everyone moves up, but you always see there's one or two of these teams. They start at the beginning and then they work their way up. They build the organization. They get more professional leagues involved. I thought that was going to be it. It's too bad, but now. I mean, now it's funny. I think that about catches us up to the wait and see game we have with you guys with what seems to be a high priority expansion market next year.
At like then I'll get to that because see then in the summer St. Louis, because there were some rumblings, and in that thing it said St. Louis as a market. We then found out through local reporting that the Family Arena was contracted with the Arena Football League. Then time came around and this, and then you heard some rumblings that they were coming next year or not this year.
Yeah.
And then apparently there was still some local reporting said they still had a contract, this and that. Then the announcement came, no St. Louis team. And even like a local report of the local paper, the Alton Telegraph, said they still had a thing right after the announcement. Then it comes to find out because Lee Hutton III really wants St. Louis in here. He said it so many times because of location and also how the football market is right now ever since the Rams left and how we're doing with the St. Louis Battlehawks. Then come to find out the Family Arena actually is going to have renovations during the summer. And they're
Well,
getting a new roof, new sound system. The whole lower bowl is getting new seats, new air conditioning, plumbing, all that. So then I'm like, well, if they want a potential owner there, why not wait till after the renovations? That way he doesn't have, he or she or how many other group, because there's a few group owners in the Arena Football League this year. And it actually will look more presentable for the second season of Arena Football League. So
yeah.
that's another reason. And though I want to be clear, because even though they have a contract with the Family Arena, we know in business contracts somehow tend to get broken. I'm just going to say they're probably going to play in the Family Arena, because as much as I want them to play in the Enterprise Center, if you saw this year, the St. Louis Blues was this close making the playoffs. Who do you think is going to get priority there?
Well, I mean, think about this too. If they're renovating an arena in which St. Charles, I know I don't live in St. Louis, but talking with you and plenty of other people via our Battlehawks community people that we talk in the UFL and XFL, it's a suburb. It's not terribly far. It still makes sense. You know, people still are going to go travel out there if you get the right marketing, and you can hit that St. Charles, Missouri area if you want, even if you want more specifics. Marketing always comes down to the ownership and how they approach things. But, you know, if it's, you know, the league has talked that they do want this market to exist. You know, so far nothing's changed, at least vocally, about what's happening with the contract with the arena, but the renovations make sense for why you might delay. Not to mention, you know, you're seeing how right now they went up to 16 teams, and that's still, to a lot of people and even myself, that's a lot of teams to start a new league with. You know,
Yeah.
even if it is a third iteration of a very well-known sports property in the AFL, it would have been even more of a risk to go to like 20, which that was the only next logical one in my mind they would have done to balance the divisions, was add Arizona, Chicago, which both of those are next year teams now. And they're confirmed next year teams. Both of them are already working on their organizations behind the scenes. Hell, we'll talk about Arizona in a bit. They're possibly announcing huge news next week. So we'll see how that goes. And then St. Louis is like seeming to be on the front of the discussed venues or discussed markets right now, the league has talked about. And then that leaves kind of some others. There was a high rumored possibility Cleveland was going to be there. We saw official accounts being put up and some other things. That's the fourth one I think they want. And even like Travell Gaines on his own Twitter had mentioned at times he was high on Cleveland, and they were going to play at like the Wayne State arena that's out there, like the Horizon League arena, which holds 10,000, mind you. But we'll see. But right now, like that's where you guys are at. It's a holding pattern. And credit, first season's got to get executed before we can even talk more stuff like that. Because beyond the 18 teams that are either playing or confirmed to play, everything else is really still kind of up in the air. And we're really assuming based off information that was several months ago at this point.
Yeah. Another thing I do want to mention before we head to the other teams here, because in an interview with Patrick Pimmel on the Arena Football League podcast where you were on last week, he actually said he was actually supposed to be the St. Louis Arena Football League coach before somebody. Then he became the Philadelphia Soul. Boy, we'll talk about it, but in like a little bit of a spoiler here, he's been having bad luck.
Yeah, a little bit, just a little.
Yeah. So that's a little bit on the St. Louis part here. Now we're going to discuss like a quick thing with the divisions here, of course. The first thing, of course, let's discuss the farthest east, the East Division here. Of course, we got the returning of some of the legacy brands. We got, of course, the Philadelphia Soul. Then we have, where the heck? I just lost my notes.
I can give you the rest here. You have the Soul. You also got the Albany Firebirds legacy brand. I mean, easily. Nashville Cats. We've already mentioned how they have done an excellent job leading up to this year. Again, gold standard to me of any of the teams. One of the two. Albany's another one, by the way. And then Minnesota Myth, which is owned by the commissioner's wife as well, Diana Hutton.
Yeah.
For the East Division.
I know some people are going to be like, wait, the commissioner's wife. I do want to mention that there have been commissioners and other people with other arena leagues have owned teams. I know it sounds weird, but we'll just see how it goes from here.
It's a delicate balance. The thing is, the commissioner It's going to be hard, but he really has to keep arm's length on this because you have to treat all teams fairly.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's gone on record and asked, how can I interfere? I'm like, well, look, there's ways, but just the simple thing is, and I trust they will not do anything, is you keep an arm's length and it's fine. Now, the myth, that I think as a brand interesting because I think you and I talked before coming on here. The fighting pike did exist, although the pike weren't really around much, and they were part of a lot of the turnover in the 90s before the AFL really kind of kicked and hit big in the late 90s. So, but it was a debate a little bit when they came back. But so far the brand's been doing pretty decent at promoting itself. So far so good, it seems.
Yeah. Because I remember when we found that Instagram account, it was just like a blank mask, gray and all that. And change how it is, I'll say from concept, like from planning to right now, that has the hugest growth as of right now.
Yes.
And they're playing at the Target Center. They're the biggest arena out of that division, 17,500. Also, just to say right now, that's also where the Arena Bowl is going to be hosted.
Yep.
So that actually is the good place to do it. The Albany Firebirds, yes, it's a legacy team, but I'll just say a little bit Albany Empire in spirit, because
it is.
Because yeah, I bet me and Zach are probably going to be waiting for that documentary about the fall of Empire after Antonio Brown took that over. Dear Lord.
If no one makes it, I will gladly find time and go to Albany to do interviews and start that process, because the story needs to be told. I've heard insane stories about that whole downfall, and people have shown me things about behind the scenes that it deserves to be a documentary, by the way. It's not like some throwaway story. It really was kind of a messed up situation for like half a year. So yeah, but the Albany Firebirds are a team in spirit that are the Empire. However, again, I did hint at this when we let in. Mike Corda owns, of course, he's the main guy that's been owning the Empire, now Firebirds, for the last several years. That's the main face. The thing they changed this time, they got 2 other local owners involved this time around. Something that when I've talked with people involved with the team, they were desperately trying to get more local engagement with companies and ownership possibilities. Teams didn't bite before AB did, but after Antonio Brown kind of, basically fumbled the bag and completely annihilated a championship team, the community rallied. Like, that's how you got this new ownership with 2 more local owners, like, that are dedicated guys. One of them owns a Chevrolet dealer, Mohawk Chevy, out there in the capital region. It's because they want this team that bad. Like, they had a massive economic hit because the Empire fell off. Even though I know they weren't the AFL 2019 levels of ticket sales, like, local downtown businesses took a massive hit with that team gone, and they want it to stay. So this is a community effort, hands down, and a response to basically what was slipped out, unfortunately, with the AB sale last year.
Yeah, and one thing I'll mention, because arena football, it's more community-oriented than most of leagues. It's kind of similar to minor league baseball in a way, and that's it, with just how close the community they are.
Yeah.
I will say, Albany Firebirds, good job on that deal of custom jerseys for only $80 and goes up to 4X. Hey, some other spring leagues, you might want to do that idea or something like it here soon.
Take a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, man. I mean, look, people.
It's limited sales. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's 2 order. It's 2 order.
And then the Nashville Cats. I know people here in St. Louis are not going to like to hear that Jeff Fisher is part of the business and operations of it, but Nashville Cats, like you mentioned, is one of the most well-run legacy out of all the legacy teams that came back. Seriously, the ownership, I know it's like one guy's a municipal business owner. You got 2 women that were involved in some type of music industry. I can't recall producing something like that.
We had 2 lawyers. That was the thing.
That's it, 2 lawyers.
Yeah,
entertainment lawyers.
You got 2 entertainment lawyers, a essentially retired now massive former radio host and entertainer from the area, from the Asheville municipal or metro area. Jeff Fisher is a partner in a way. And then they also added another owner during the lead up. So strong ownership base in terms of diversifying the cost. And then not to mention, Will, like we've talked, I love teams that go hard on the little things. Nashville does the little stuff right every step of the way. They've been hitting the ground locally in marketing. They've been going to Nashville Predators games and advertising the team. They've been doing excellent social media work and video content, marketing with graphics. They've created a goddamn theme song that's reminiscent of like XFL 2020. Claws Out is like one of those like WWE banger type of songs. It's just stuff like that. That is a team that is, to me, again, I say it, I can't say it enough. It is the model franchise in the AFL right now, or at least one of them with Albany that I look at and I go, that's what I think everyone wanted every team to be. It's not how that was going to work out, but Nashville is that team. You know, the only kicker, it's funny, Will, Dean Kokinos, I've heard so much critiques about that pick as head coach because of what his last stint was with the Washington Valor. But I'll be honest, when I was on the AFL podcast doing power rankings, I got Nashville as one of my top teams in this league. I love their roster. So we'll see.
And I don't know why, because he's basically coming back home. He started as a scout for the Nashville Cats when the Titans owned the Nashville Cats. And it's like he's coming home, did all the coaching and other stuff, and now he's back here. So I don't understand the problem with it either. And unfortunately, we go from the top of the division to something at the bottom with the Philadelphia Soul.
It's been rocky.
Yeah.
Been rocky.
Though you had ownership that backed out last minute. You're not playing in Philly, but in New Jersey at the Kia Arena. And you're only having not one, not two, but only 3 home games. 1 at the end of May, 2 at the end of June. Dear Lord, Patrick Pimmel has the worst luck. And also their starting QB got injured.
I know. I wanted Mitch Kidd to play. I was looking forward to that. That was a great pickup in the offseason. And that just hearing about, I think it was a calf injury, I believe it was. That was a shame. So, you know, they still do have some decent options at quarterback. Aaron Aiken, who has had some quality starts in the IFL with the Quad City Steamrollers, he's going to be solid. But yeah, let's see what we got here. Actually, let's read this off.
Yeah, David, he put some good facts. According to Ticketmaster, ticket sales appear to bring for that inaugural game this Saturday between Albany and Orlando, which is going to be a very good matchup. Not as many blue dots on the arena map as I saw a couple of days ago. Yeah, that's going to probably be close to a near sellout, I would think, especially for the NFL Network game, the first one. So, and it's just weird with the whole Philadelphia Soul thing. Of course, maybe they're not the worst, maybe second to worst situation here in the new Arena Football League.
There is worse, unfortunately. They're not the low, but what does hurt it? Yeah, them losing their local ownership and having the league take it over. It's not ideal, and it is, unfortunately, for a public standpoint, it's a black eye publicly. Like I'm going to be honest, you know. The league has seemed to have started moving things in the correct direction and are hiring people to do so. So that's the good thing. But the model being that you want part local ownership needs to be reestablished as soon as possible if the team's going to succeed and continue to grow by next year. Playing in Trenton, New Jersey, look, I'll probably be the devil. I'll be the minority on this one slightly. Just talking with people that have a little even more AFL experience than I have. Philadelphia has played historically in Trenton at times in the past.
Okay.
However, I will say that, look, the AFL standard is pretty high for a lot of people. The Philadelphia Soul, they were pretty well. They're one of the best well-known brands from the AFL back in its glory days in the 2000s and even in its last iteration in the 2010s. Playing in Trenton does not look great. Is it insane? No. Cure Assurance Arena is a solid arena. It has hosted arena teams in the past with decent capacity. And as Lee Hutton put it, it's a venue that wants them. Like, that's very helpful when you're trying to get something started. One of the main issues it sounded like that kind of led to the inevitable ownership leaving is they were kind of dragging their feet trying to get this arena deal done. They wanted to play at Wells Fargo. But here's the thing. Wells Fargo, it's a very busy venue. You got to remember, Will, crunch time, because remember, they started pushing the season it's not a whole year lead up. So they have to, scheduling things is rough. And, beyond that, I can't confirm these rumors are true, but there's rumors of like some certain contingencies from the previous AFL. And I'm not going to fully say what they are because I don't fully buy in on them yet, and I need a little more details. But there's a lot of stuff going on. They wanted Wells Fargo. It didn't happen. They dragged their feet too long. The league basically went, hey, look, we got to go. It's go time. We need to, like, you had your tryout in February. It was well over a month at that point, and things just came to a head, and they just took over and started going. Now it could be worse. You could be one of the teams, and we'll talk about in the South Division, but you have 3 home games. Good news is they're later in the schedule. Late May is the first one. The other 2 are late June, so you have time to build up and get people in. And I can tell you, Will, there is work being done to update the website. I got that confirmed by someone who was at an event talking with the GM and the team. So they are working on things, but it's partially because unfortunately stuff got dragged way too long for a little bit, and they're playing catch up. It doesn't look good though. I will say again, it's a black eye. I'll put it out there for PR, but luckily things are moving correctly. The hope is next year they can expand on what they're doing this year.
Yeah, and as you're going through, the next division is going to be the AFL South Division we're going to talk about. Of course, right before that, with the East Division, I kind of have Albany number 1, probably Nashville 2. So, unfortunate with the whole situation, it's going to be hard for player morale, in my opinion. But we'll see. Things have come unexpected, especially in arena football world. Let me be clear.
Right.
So, we're looking at what is on paper until they get inside that arena. Injuries, any type of weird plays, especially if it comes off the nets. So,
well, yeah. Thank God the Nets are back too. Again, can't say that enough.
We're going to talk. I want to talk about how they're doing with the kicking here in a little bit.
Well, hey, there's one venue I'm waiting to see how the Nets look. If you know which one I'm talking about, so
I have a feeling. Now, when it comes to the South, we'll start with, of course, bringing back with probably the loudest owner in the league, and I'm not talking about voice. I'm talking about his fashion sense with the Orlando Predators.
Dude, John Chaney is a riot. That man, he is like the perfect owner to get hyped up. Like I know he can go on and be kind of a bulldog on his own on the breakdown at times, and kind of say things to go at owners, but like he is the perfect guy that has gotten this fan base re-energized. I'll tell you, Will, 3 years ago when the Predators came back, it was a startup from 5 years dormant that they didn't have John. It was another owner. It was 2 other owners. One of them, Nate Starling, who also gets a ton of credit for getting the Preds where they are now. He is gone from that organization. But, they had a second owner that unfortunately was not doing business correctly. And they ousted him in the NAL. And that team was at, I wouldn't say dire straits, but it was like kind of do or die to see where it was going to go. And not to mention COVID hit at the same time. So 2021 comes in and they hire John and they get John in as an owner. Since then, Will, it's been consistent upward movement. They have revitalized that franchise to maybe not where it was back in the 2010s before it closed shop, but it's getting there. Like every year they have topped their best attendance for best game every year. Last year, they were just under 9,000 at a game. I take that back. They had a 10,000 seat attendance game last season. And that's impressive. In a short span like that, in a smaller league like the NAL, that's great. That is the type of owner you want. Preds are another one of those like franchises that are doing stuff correctly in many regards. Their issue is, and we'll talk when it comes to best roster, tons of coaching turnover. Great roster this year, by the way, but the coaching has been abysmal since they have gotten things with Chaney's organization. So they're looking for some consistency. It's been a minute since they've had at least a playoff team in 2021.
Yeah, I know they got I haven't seen them put out their final roster yet. Heck, the Rapid City, they did theirs just a little bit before the show came on. So I know Venom Tersaverde Jr., of course, he was on the St. Louis Bellhawks. And of course, you have your son of a very well-known football player in the NFL. You're going to get some notice on there. So I'm actually interested to see, I can't remember how quick his actual throwing motion was. So if he was actually good in an arena game or not, I need to look back at his old game film to take a look at that. Now, the next best team probably in the South is the rebranded West Texas Desert Hawks in Odessa. and the only Texas team. I just want to be clear because I know how the other Springers have a lot of Texas teams, but there's
Yes.
only one.
It's the only one. It's west. It's far west Texas. You know, Odessa's not one of the bigger cities there, but look, they have a pretty. I would say they have a pretty dedicated owner in Zach Bugg over there. Took over last season for the then Warbirds. And again, similar to Orlando, except for that season, they were a terrible team last year. But like game over game, they got more people in the building, and that not to mention. They brought in ex-AFL coach and former commissioner of the NAL, Chris Siegfried, to bring in for head coach. That's been, I think, a really good change as someone, he gets to go away from that mess last year and, coach a team and go back to his roots. And their roster I know that we talk about best teams in the South. I actually have them as winning the South. And I am very much leaning that they will be highly one of the teams that you could see in Arena Bowl 33. I'm very confident in West Texas's roster, and their coaching. I don't have a problem. Chris Siegfried wasn't terrible, wasn't too bad of a coach in his days in the AFL and AF2. So, their roster construction that Terrence Foster's put together too, it's pretty quality. I really like them. They're one of my favorite teams overall in the league to even be in the championship come July, if I were to put it in there.
Yeah, the question is who's going to be their starter because Corey Curtis is now with the Seattle Seahawks now, so it's either
Jonathan Bain. Come on, have you seen Jonathan Bain?
I get what you mean, but it just mentioned like so far that's like the first one from this iteration of the AFL to the NFL. Just want to mention that real quickly, and then unfortunately when it comes to the South. We got more of the lull part of the league right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, a few things to discuss, definitely.
Yeah. First, we got, of course, let's go with the second worst problem, the Louisiana Voodoo. Of course, I guess they were trying to get to New Orleans. That didn't happen because originally they were going to play in Lake Charles, arena that was about 7,450 capacity. Then just a few days ago, apparently there was some disagreement. I have questions on both sides here of why you would wait this soon for this type of thing,
right.
and move now to the Black Home Coliseum for the University of Louisiana Lafayette. You go from 7,500 to 5,500. I have seen the turf down in that arena, though, with how the photos are angled. I'm wondering, are the nets going to be able to fit in that arena? So that's like the biggest question there.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't gotten the net photos yet. They're going to have to go up, and they've said they've purchased all their equipment and everything.
The head coach came on Facebook and social media about the whole situation.
Yeah, and I'll be frank, like that's kind of Facebook is, if you're looking for info a lot of times, it kind of is like that. Like that is the best place to go if you're looking for accounts to kind of get quick info. It's just weird, but that's just how Arena Indoor's done it for since Facebook existed. But I'll tell you what, Will, I know you're kind of feeling weird about the situation. I've kind of been dwelling on it since I've heard that announcement, because here's the thing. We've heard both sides of the story. ASM is a massive company that owns tons of much higher profile arenas across the country than the Lake Charles Civic Center. So first off, this is like one of their small, very much, I would imagine, not as high priority arenas to consider. And the events they have there there's not many from what I understand that go on right now, or at least aren't scheduled this year. That being said, what I found interesting through all this is, when you hear stuff about insurance and all that, and, you have an ex-president of the team that is saying that the AFL was handling all the negotiations and they couldn't do anything, and he wasn't allowed to do anything in town. That's when I start getting kind of wishy-washy, because I don't like hearing insurance issues and stuff like that. That always kind of makes me go, wait a minute, what's going on? That being said, if insurance issues are a problem, and again, there's been conflicting reports on that, because even James Shiver and John Fourcade, who are on the coaching staff, Fourcade claims he's seen the insurance papers. So I don't know what the actual deal is. They claim that the ASM was a nightmare to work with and that they weren't a good partner and the city was not complying very well. And what I find interesting with the insurance option is, what does that mean about University of Louisiana Lafayette? Did they not vet the insurance? What's up there? Because if the insurance problem is what the issue is, wouldn't you be denied going to an arena up the way, an hour away at such a short notice? Like, I would imagine you just call up the old venue if they were having problems and were saying this in negotiations and get the deal. But I don't know what to say to that. So right now they do have a partner. They apparently are trying to go to the Cajun Dome next year. So that's kind of their play, is establish themselves in Lafayette and then go to a bigger venue in Lafayette next year. But it's a weird situation, Will. There's no true story that seems to be standing out correctly. Like, even Lake Charles people that have come on Facebook or social media have said that ASM's not a great company for the Lake Charles Civic Center. So I have no idea. I don't know who's really telling the full story. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, of course. As Michael put here, insurance issues and last minute venue changes is a red flag, but it depends on the
it's a red flag, but like, my thing is, how does another venue vet the team in such a short notice? Like, again, maybe I'm crazy. I don't do scheduling, but I would think if insurance is the problem and you're hearing from a team who clearly was planning this move before their announcement came out and they're talking and you're wanting to vet them, I would imagine you're going to vet the person you're bringing in if you're giving them money, unless you just want to roll the red carpet out and you're desperate for a person. But like, that's my thing, is like, when you talk insurance, like, I ask if venues are checking and doing their checks and balances and due diligence on what's going on, unless the policies are different. So, I don't know. I hate hearing insurance issues though, Will, because it means instability. It means stuff that's not being done right. But I digress. I throw my hands up because I'm not sure what's all going on. Because again, if it is insurance, no venue should be taking a team. But what do I know?
Yeah. Then we'll go with probably the lowest of the team, unfortunately. Ironically, it was the last announced team for this new iteration of Arena Football League, the Georgia Force.
Yeah, the Georgia Force. What is probably, by the day, I hate to say it, I do believe they will be a travel team, Will. Because even Orlando came out on their socials and acknowledged that their game against Georgia may convert to a road game. And the last report was from Tim Capper and from a few other people that they were scheduling 2 games to be at home at a venue to be determined. I don't know if that's going to happen. Originally, they were supposed to play at the Georgia Civic Center. And the way I understand that went down is, I think, twofold. First off, they used to have a first ownership. That ownership got a ton of flack from people in the area because one of the owners that was involved was from a former lower level league and had done some shady stuff with that lower level league years ago. And that ownership left under the pretenses like that from public pressure. They then scrambled and got a new ownership that Lee Hutton had mentioned in January. Since then, I can imagine you're seeing how this goes. It's been crunch time. And when you have a TV schedule come out that might change dates, along with a ownership that's changing, and the arena's got to renegotiate with new people. Now they got to vet those people. Again, we're talking insurance. We're talking about all this stuff. It just leads to a slope of saying you might not get this stuff done. And I think what's going to happen is, for those that want the Force to exist, you're just going to have to, I hate to say it, you're going to have to cross your fingers and see what happens next year, because they're probably going to be a travel team. I don't see them having those 2 games. If Orlando is talking this late in the game that might change, I'm not feeling great about them having 2 games right now. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, though, of course, if I remember correctly, Orlando has that deal. They have to have 6 home games a year of their venue contract.
Yeah, and that's the venue. They already do. The thing is, they might have to have 7 now, is what's being discussed. With one of which, unfortunately, their schedule, if Georgia changes to a home game, is 6 straight home games. So that is a gauntlet. But, we'll see.
Yeah, then, of course, now we'll probably go to what I would say is the easiest travel division I have ever seen in any type of football ever, with the Central Division.
Yes.
Of course, you got, 3 teams that came over from the Champions Indoor Football League. May it rest in peace, unfortunately. That's
rip for that.
with 3 Kansas teams: the Salina Liberty, the Southwest Kansas Storm, and the Wichita Regulators. Then, of course, you got a team that caught me by surprise and how Actually, it looks like they're catching some steam in their local market. I probably think that's how the Stormers are not doing too well right now with the Iowa Rampage right now at Council Bluffs at Mid America Center. And of course, they got Tyrus Jackson. He was actually the Topeka Tropics, another team that had problems.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he's experienced. And I'll tell you one thing: if you're going to start from the ground up, you start with experience on that line on both sides, and that's what they did first. And that's what I actually like about the Iowa Rampage.
Yeah, Iowa, I do think can be sneakily good. The Central to me is a little more wide open. I'll be honest with you, compared to some like I think the East is kind of, but realistically, I've got two teams that are kind of heading in charge. Honestly, in the Central, I think three of the teams have any case to kind of finish in those upper two spots right now, and that's Iowa, Salina, and Southwest Kansas. It's not. I'm not saying that they're like top tier to me. I think Salina has a pretty solid roster. I think Southwest Kansas and Iowa have potential to have those have roster pieces that can elevate their squads to be some decent squads and at least be very competitive. Iowa specifically, because I like Rakeem Cato. Thing is, can he stay healthy and can he finish a season? That's what we got to see. He has a great arm. He's mobile, but can he finish the season? But nonetheless, those three teams super high on. Wichita, it's the roster is a little iffy to me.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes, but I think if anything, it's the one division they could definitely step into right now. Maybe beyond that, maybe the West that they have a shot. I just think that there's a bit better competition ahead of them that are some at least two of them CIF vets in a way, and one of them Iowa having CIF ties back as well, given that one of their owners did own the Tropics for a portion of time before unfortunate events happened with certain other owners involved in Topeka.
Yeah, and I like I said, Iowa looks good. Southwest Kansas Storm with coach of Gary Thomas. Dear Lord, they signed a lot of people that we know from the XFL, USFL world.
They did
a lot. And Connor Davis, like people probably know him from winning the 2020 Battlehawks. He bulked up. He now weighs over 300 pounds now. Of course, he'll probably play that guard, tight end still type of position on the line. Of course, we have to see. I don't know how many we're going to see of those lineman screens like we saw back in the day. And especially in this video game right here, that's how I got into arena football.
I don't know. I think there's a chance. I'll tell you, given the NAL was basically running, arena football without nets for most of its existence, there were some tight end passes and screens that happened in those seasons that were pretty damn good. I think there's a possibility. Davis, he's a guy that could play that hybrid spot on the outside if they really needed to, because he has that experience. So watch out for that. I love Chris Platt, by the way, as a pickup for them. In terms of the receiving core, great pickup there. Daquan Brown, who is, he was having short spells in the USFL, but clearly he's had impact on the outdoor game to where he's been getting looks. I like him out there as well. I think he's a great pickup as well if we're talking veteran guys. Eugene Minter's another one that I really like too. QB situation, I don't mean to always break it. We don't always mean to break it down to this with teams, but they're going to have, it kind of comes down to local talent for them a little more. Caden Walters is someone that they have praised for a good chunk of time since they signed him on. So I'm getting a vibe he's going to be their starter week one. I'm slightly leaning he has some upside, but we'll see. Newer quarterbacks to arena, it depends on how much they pick up right away, because it's not the same as outdoor. You really got to be under center a lot of times. You got to get the ball and get it the hell out. Otherwise, things are going to break down really quick.
Yeah, they got a lot of association when it comes to the Dodge City Community College alumni on this team on here.
A lot of local connection, which some of these teams, that's their lean, is definitely that for sure.
Yeah, I will say I do kind of hope this team does well, because I have a little bias with a college association. Former Pittsburgh Mauler Will Miles came from my school at Central Methodist University at NAIA school. So, and unfortunately the Maulers, and now he's back in here. So hopefully sometime he might get back into the outdoor football. But right now, like Southwest Kansas Storm looks pretty good. The Salina Liberty look really good, in my opinion.
I think Salina to me is my favorite to win the
Salina,
Central. There is
sorry.
no doubt. Yeah, they're definitely my favorite. They leaned on, and that's not, this isn't a knock. They leaned on a lot of familiar faces, but again, Salina's been CIF wise freaking two times. I mean, they were back to back in their championship game the last 2 years. Won 2 years ago, and then lost to a extremely impressive Omaha Beef team the prior year. I mean, they're definitely coming in as one of the more established. Honestly, if it's not Billings, Salina is the most established CIF team that's moving over. And I know that I've seen people give flack for the Kansas teams, but like guys, for anyone that doesn't know, Salina has been around since the late '90s. They have been a well-established indoor team for a few decades now. I have a full confidence that they're going to put together a decent roster. They're going to be the threat to me to be the top dog in the Central, just from the fact that they know their stuff. They know how to put things together, and it is a conference that at least they have a little more flexibility, I think, in terms of guys that are rosters that aren't put together with a lot more of the powerhouses we've seen from like IFL or like even some USFL or XFL guys for the most part. Maybe saying Southwest Kansas, but the veteran leadership of Salina definitely puts them as my favorite. They're just well constructed.
Yeah, and when it comes to Wichita, I am not too sure about this team, to be quite frank. Of course, I don't know. They haven't updated much on their website at all, and I've been trying to. Yeah, no, they kind of want to go with the ICT when it comes with the regulators, though. It's kind of weird. The Arena Football League and this iteration have a lot of things when it comes to Western type mascots and team names in this iteration, which is kind of weird.
I chalk part of that up to the fact that part of it's because the CIF had a ton of Western properties as well. I mean, keep in mind Billings, Rapid City was a CIF team too. The Southwest Kansas Storm referencing tornadoes in Kansas. So Wichita Regulators, another CIF team. Which actually Regulators is more relating to tax people from last I checked. So interesting, but it's a CIF connection. I get it. I've heard the stuff, but I guess what do you do when CIF guys come over? I mean, you're going to bring those Cowboy brands or West brands. It is how it is.
Yeah. Of course, with the arena teams here, of course, you got a mixture of people with experience either in outdoor football pros, semi-pros, and all that type of stuff, local and non-local. And Michael Laffer gave a great comment with you, Zach, and with this first one, hope can make somewhat frequent approaches on my show, but it depends how you schedule, because dear Lord, you've been busy this week.
I know. Well, the thing is that this is going to be some of the arguably the busiest I'll have ever been following football. I mean, not saying I don't follow. Well, actually, I take that back. This will be about the same as when I used to cover the NAL on a regular basis before the keys to the car were handed over this past year. To say that how I can put it. So yeah, it's gonna be busy. I mean, watching these games is gonna be crazy. Mike,
don't
appreciate the comment, and also again, thanks for the comments earlier about the insurance thing, because like I do think it's a discussion we should have. Like, I'm just saying, like, team insurance issue sucks, but also point at the venue if you're gonna allow something to happen to them. So I'm curious to see how that goes. Just tell me to cycle back, but I just want to say thanks for that comment to bring up a debate topic, because it's worth debate. Like, it's something to keep an eye on for this season for them.
Yeah. And then we'll go to the final division, the West Division, or I like to call the division with the best uniforms. Seriously, they have the best unis, and honestly, you got we'll start with the Billings Outlaws, probably the best emblem on the helmet of the whole league, probably.
Yeah, no, they definitely with the Outlaw logo without the word font. No, that's crisp. They're gonna have pretty nice unis. I know it's more like the simple design where it's more just the blue with like kind of a white trim, but it pops. So theirs are gonna look great with the white helmet. It should look really nice when they play on turf. But I mean, I think you aren't wrong though. Like, it's funny you brought that up because, like, yeah, so far the West, like, uniform design, like, dude, The Oregon Black Bears, it's my favorite uniform. They've knocked it out of the frickin' park with the design for the Black Bears. Love it. The Washington Wolfpack, the photo shoot doesn't have the purple helmets, but if you've been following the Wolfpack, they're going to have like these like nice deep purple helmets that like have reflective shine on it with the Wolfpack emblem on it. Those are going to be crisp. It's going to look really crisp on the field. And then I haven't seen Rapid City, but Rapid City is going to have red caps with their Rapid City like Marshall head emblem on it already. I think, yeah, you're onto something. I think you're right. Because I love the unis for a lot of those teams. No doubt about it.
Yeah, though the division I think is going to be very competitive to like maybe either first or second competitive in the whole league because like Red City Rapids, because they probably have the best field I've seen so far because it's red.
Well, yeah.
It's red and the atmosphere like I've been reading on their posts that they got a lot of talent coming to like you got some local musical talent with their halftime shows they did for their preseason game. And then, of course, Washington and Oregon we'll discuss it for the week 1, but they had a preseason game and they faced each other off, and that was a close game.
Shout out to Wes Johnson and Rebecca Chapman, by the way. I know it's not been like Nashville level, like Nashville's way of presenting a team, but like, I'll tell you, I've been following a lot of their social media and how they've been promoting the team and what they're doing to get hype around the Rapid City Marshals. And again, this is a team that was roughly a year and a half ago on the brink of not existing anymore. Pick Six Entertainment used to own the team. Finances fell through. Wes and Rebecca picked the team up and have been basically running the banner. They're one of my favorite ownership groups. They have put in a ton of legwork. They're on the ground doing stuff every single week, it looks like, and are promoting this on a constant basis. And you can see that preseason game they had, if you followed any of the footage, decent crowd came out for it. And they put in, musical venues or acts like you're talking about. They've already got 2 of them lined up for the season already, and they're going to probably have more. Like, I love what Rapid City's doing. I have said this to people. I'm going to keep saying it to people. Like, they're not, I know the CIF banner gets a lot of flack from people that are like looking at the CIF because they know, well, it's not Omaha, it's not Sioux City that were the 2 biggest teams in the CIF, but Rapid City, I gotta say, they've been doing things right. Like, it looks like they've been doing stuff right all off season. They deserve the praise. I gotta say it. Like, this isn't the Rapid City Marshals from Pick 6 era from 2 years ago. This is a team that is locally owned and like really wants this to work as one of the 2 main sports entities in Rapid City, South Dakota, besides the Rush. So really good job. It's been said elsewhere, but they deserve praise. I really hope to God that keeps going up like it has been and that people come out and show out. And that's a good team this year, hopefully, too. They've had some bad teams. So I'm hoping it's a decent team in the West. West is a little bit more wide open personally to me, just like the Central. But, we'll see. Anything, get a base. They've done a great job, I think, getting some hype going in Rapid City, South Dakota for that squad.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who would be the starter, Villanueva or Sheehan, actually.
I think it's Villanueva from what I've seen. He was starting in the preseason. He has AFL experience credit. He is 45. He's definitely on the older side for any arena quarterback. But I think it's going to be him. I would be shocked if it's not him.
I might need to confirm with you because I see a name I recognize, Tim Lucas. That's supposed to be their jack linebacker. Like, I recall someone that's from Illinois that's kind of in that area, but I don't know if that's him or not.
I'm not 100% right off the top of my head, personally. But yeah, the name sounds familiar. I'll be honest with you right there.
Yeah.
And feel free in the comments to correct me. Like I said, I've been trying to, some things I've missed, but I do try to keep up as best I can. So this one just slips through the cracks for me right now.
Yeah, the one thing with the Billings Outlaws, their head coach Cedric Walker, experience, and well, you can't go wrong with someone that was a 2-time Arena Bowl champion, one as a player and one as a coach. So that's experience. So that one reason I like the West is just like you got different things here. Now with the Oregon Black Bears, that's a team I kind of have a little bias to because of a player that you and I know that we've had on the field that we've had in the past, and that's of course Jeremiah Spicer, who's going to be one of I believe, he'll be the MAC linebacker if I remember correctly. Though I'm interested if he's going to because here's the thing in the Arena Football League when it comes to Ironman. The running back, it's not the running back, it's the fullback is the one that shines in the running game. So,
personally, that's one of the reasons. Another reason I love arena over indoor style. By the way, I get some people love it because it's familiar. The running back is familiar, like in outdoor. I love seeing a big lineman-esque guy plowing ahead for 10 yards and maybe getting more popped off. Like that does happen, and it's way more exciting to me to see a big dude stumbling down the field and like smashing people over in the second and third levels. So, if he gets that shot, that is great. And I'll tell you, like I said, the Oregon, I think the West is a lot more wide open. Oregon, to me, it's a dark horse team for me because I don't know. They have pieces around that I like. Mm-hmm. For example, Spicer in the defense is a good pickup. They have guys from the Oregon High Desert Storm days that Chuck Jones coached under, like DeAnthony Hall-Steele. I like, in particular, Jordan Pouncey as a pickup, as a more professional guy. He's been looking to get more opportunities in the second level. Nick Brassel was really good in his short stint with the Albany Empire before it was doomed last year. My question is, who's starting a quarterback? Because I know Connor Kagi seems to be that guy.
Is that the one that's 6'7" or the other guy?
It's Kagi's the tall guy in this one. Vincent Espinoza is more of the shifty former IFL quarterback for the not Oakland, the Panthers. My bad. It used to be the Oakland Panthers, is what it was going to say. But he's coming over. I like him for the shiftiness. I'm curious to see if Kagi's adapted to the game indoor better, because last time he played, it was rocky, is all I can tell you. But if one of these QBs steps up to the plate and slings it, they have the people to make an impact in the West, to be honest with you. Because their main target to me, I think personally Billings is the favorite right now. Their coaching staff easily stands out. But Oregon's roster, if the quarterback position gets solidified right away, don't be surprised if they make some moves in the standings in the West.
Yeah. And probably, like you say, like the Washington Wolfpack here, they came out of nowhere with that teal with their uniforms, to be quite honest. A lot of people were not expecting. That's another team because this is actually one of the teams you actually had fans choose the name of this franchise here. And another thing, too, go back to Oregon Black Bears. I didn't know that was the first ever Oregon Arena football team in the whole state's history.
No, that's incorrect.
Oh, it's incorrect?
No, because they used to the Portland used to have a team back in the 90s, the Forest Dragons.
Ah, okay.
No, there have been teams in Oregon. First one in Salem. I don't know where that came from. I was actually surprised to hear that, because the AFL's had a history in Portland. It hasn't been long, but they've been in Portland before. So, I was kind of shocked to hear that.
Yeah, it was like on their social medias and stuff. I'm like, and people are saying, I was like, you sure? Oregon seems like a place that arena football would probably be popular with no pro football team. I was like,
and even the Forest Dragons weren't the most recent one. Like the Portland Steel, that was in the 2000s. So, I'm not sure where that came from. I was actually kind of surprised to hear that. They've had a history. They've had a history.
David, he went to double check here. It said Portland Forest Drag, Portland Thunder, and the Portland Storm.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the Steel is, I think, what he's meaning, but unless the Storm or another one I'm missing. But yeah, the Steel, the Thunder, and the Forest Dragons have all existed. I'm not sure where that quote came from. Yeah. But there has been part of the reason Portland, it sounded like, even ended in the first place was some things where it was ownership based last iteration of the team when it came over there. But we'll see. I will tell you, Oregon, at least as of last few months, they've been getting out and about in Salem, and are starting to promote well. Their venue, Will, and I want your thoughts on this. Their venue is the most fascinating venue
I've seen the pics.
League. That ceiling, my God.
Yeah.
The preseason game, we did get a report from someone who was there. 5 of the 8 kickoffs in that preseason game hit the rafters in some way, but 3 of them did make it back. So you can kick, but it's got to be a line drive.
Yeah,
I can tell you.
Their facility is more, if people just to let people know, it's kind of weird, like the county fairs like the rodeos and stuff there. I do like the atmosphere of the arena. I just think
Yeah.
people wish the roof was just a little bit taller. So,
Well, we haven't seen what the nets look like either, because
yeah,
someone early pointed out that the full size net system will not fit in their setup. So I do wonder if we're gonna have what I'm calling a munchkin net, because you're gonna have, like, supposedly by rule, unless they're making an exception. And I've asked players on the team if the nets are getting installed, and they've said they are this week. So I'm wondering what it looks like. Is it a smaller condensed net, like a cutesy little net in the back? Is it like a standing net on stilts, which that's a thing that has happened in the history of the sport? We're going to find out. It's a small venue, so it's going to have some adjustments will be made. But luckily, one thing, Will, that's nice about Arena, you talked about minor league baseball in a way for a different reason on this show. Arena football is kind of, in a way, kind of like baseball, with how every field, every arena is just a tad different than each other. I know that this is pretty extreme, but that is a thing with all arenas. Every arena, even in all the other smaller leagues, there's little differences that you got to account for. Kicking usually is the main difference, though.
Yeah, and especially the kicker has many different ways to score points in the arena game nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Deuce, baby. It's into the AFL. It was a smart decision. They brought that from the NAL. Thank you. That was a great element to be bringing.
Yeah,
into the
and just to let people know, the kicker, if he kicks the ball in between the goalposts on there, they get 2 points, and the team gets the ball on the 10-yard line. Then there's, of course, the 4-point option. I think it's 4 points for the drop kick.
Correct.
It has happened, though.
The IFL's been doing it a lot this year, actually. So I'll see how much that goes to the AFL.
And then yeah, and then a new rule. I'm not sure if you read the rule book now, but there's a new rule now. If somehow the kicker kicks the ball out of bounds without touching the net, the receiving team gets 1 point.
Yep, and that is coming over from the NAL. So that was instituted not last year. I believe it was it was last year. It was last year. The way this goes, it used to be in the NAL, we called it on Inside the Walls, the Manas rule. And the reason why is because in 2022, Tom Manas, who was head coach at the time of the Albany Empire, his main kicker, Mark Orozco, got knocked out with an injury for the majority of the season after a game against the Columbus Lions. They could not kick the ball down the field to save their life. So what they did is they purposely would kick out of bounds every kickoff to mitigate some of the lost yardage that they could have had. And it avoided a return. What happened is the response was that they decided to put the penalty in for 1 point to mitigate basically avoiding kickoffs. It's a penalty to basically say, hey, look, we want kickoffs in this game. You cannot kick it out of bounds. If you do, it's extreme, giving a point away. It can change a game, but they really want kickoffs. And I mean this because of the fact that indoor football, up until recently, where they've started making kickers basically kick short so they aren't kicking them out of bounds and giving away free touchbacks this year, it's basically been either squib kicks or they kick it out of bounds every play. And so with nets, the excitement is the nets being able to return and what the nets can bring with a bar ball or a bounce off the net incorrectly or a fault or a failed return. So it's basically saying, hey, do this for the entertainment factor. If you don't, well, hey, penalty on you. It's a little extreme, but it's for the fun of the game to incentivize that the game's fun factor stays.
Yeah, David just actually looked at pics of the arena.
Yeah, David, it is, the ceiling height is lower than what the configuration for nets is as like nets themselves. So not to mention that nets are supposed to be, and I checked this, it's supposed to be, I believe, 8 feet above the backboard as well. Again, Munchkin nets. I am fascinated to see what these things look like, because I am imagining it is a condensed net system that they're building.
And like I said earlier, what David says, it's a good atmosphere for arena football. Just that If only the planners knew. Let's raise it up a little bit.
Right. Well, and they played a preseason game there this past week that, they were smart. They gave away free tickets to the game to kind of bring in the community. I thought that was a really smart idea. It's not their first game, but it's to say, hey, we're in town, check it out. And credit, there was some stuff they didn't have right. The walls were also not official walls. Credit, the team has said they're bringing them in this week, so it's not going to be cattle fences with cushioning on them. So bear that in mind. But still, that it's going to be interesting to see how they do it because, once they get all the systems set up, those nets, I just, like I said, I really want to see the nets. They have to be these small little nets that are like cute. And I think they'll be wonderful.
Yeah, David, it's basically the county fair type of
exactly
type of arena for rodeos and stuff. I know that, especially from living here in Jeffco. Yeah. So one thing, let's go a little bit quick here since we did all this. Talk about how to watch the AFL games. Of course, everyone knows the biggest thing here for the arena teams here. Let's start with the small one first. A lot of them are able to look in their local television markets thanks to Gray Television, which was a huge thing to get.
That is massive, massive deal for the league, by the way.
And just to be clear with everyone, like, for example, St. Louis here, we have a Gray Television, which is KMOV Channel 4. It wouldn't be on that channel. It would be on, like, if it's antenna or you have cable, you have those, like, the 4.2s, the 4.3s, like the Me TVs or something. Some of them are on CW too, but it depends on which market. Louisiana Voodoo, even with their situation, they got a lot of channels on their thing.
Massive spread. Even Georgia Force, with them possibly being a travel team, they're going to be on Peachtree Sports Network in Atlanta, or throughout Georgia. Actually, sorry, I was saying Atlanta, but it's a network owned completely by Gray TV, who's based in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's going to be statewide. So, at least they'll get exposure. Is the thing there? But no, look, I've had people that have asked me, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. That have said, why are they on YouTube? Because everyone's associated with the IFL and the NAL and all these leagues doing YouTube. And I get it. It's free access. You get accustomed to it. It's been 5 years since the AFL last existed, and it's free to jump on and click on a game. Here's the thing, though. If you are trying to, and the AFL's trying to do it where they are trying to monetize and find revenue streams to grow the game, YouTube is not that. YouTube has a massive risk when it comes to broadcast because the arenas broadcast their own DJs and their own audio. Unless you are going to mute the games and do a broadcast where it is just the announcers talking and none of the stuff in the arena that adds to the broadcast element, which, hey, you and I know with the USFL and UFL and XFL stuff, how much people are picky about what goes on TV. That would get ripped to shreds. And that's the only way they could do it without getting slapped with a copyright or DMCA strike, which the IFL deals with on a consistent basis and the NAL does. So to avoid that, you go on to Gray TV and NFL Network, as David has pointed out. And yes, we were going to talk about that. Yep. Thank you. And there is more monetization options there. Gray TV alone, it's a multi-year deal. It's not just a one-off. They're going to be with the AFL for several years. It sounds like that, and they'll be producing the NFL Network games, which is huge, by the way, that you're having, through a different deal, a production company helping your NFL Network games. Instead of you having to fully outright fund and find support for all these productions, you have someone that is in your corner already that you have working with you. So I get it. It's not YouTube, but guys, from a business standpoint, this is massive. Like, for possible monetary avenues, you're not going to find that on YouTube. I'm just being honest with you. That is why they didn't do YouTube.
To give a good example, Zach, here's how the first arena game that was on YouTube sounded like.
Freaking Pyro from TF2 vibes right there. That's right.
Yes, it's like, because YouTube, you think it's good, but sometimes with just a little bit of a problem, ruins the whole broadcast. Sound, heck, a little bit of problem here. Even this broadcast could get ruined. That's unfortunate, because it also brings back to, like, because here, arena football, they're not just looking for just a specific age bracket. They're trying to get everyone's age brackets. Like, there's even older people, older than me and Zach here, they don't even use YouTube. Heck, there's still there's still bad internet access. Heck, where I'm at, we finally got high-speed internet. That's how I'm able to
Right.
broadcast right now. I'm sorry to say, I don't live in the middle of nowhere. That's the thing. Internet companies, because they want money to be able to put ground underneath the ground, or it'll be a while till we do the satellite stuff. I know Amazon's trying to do that, but we'll see that in a few
Right,
years.
exactly. Here's another thing with the TV deal that I think, if we're talking business, think about it this way. With YouTube, you are at your yes, it is free to make a channel and you can put all the streams together and send it that way. But you are at the mercy of a third-party platform that can basically affect how games are seen and how you're able to do business. And as I have heard, you don't, again, this isn't just me. I've been told from arena owners in the past, YouTube does not make money on a good enough basis for these teams right now. It is still ticket sales driven. So that is something to keep in mind. Now when you have great TV, when you have NFL Network, and the kicker third, you're building a streaming platform on your own application right now, which is just as big to me, because here's the thing, Will, you can take essentially the YouTube element of this, put it on the app, and basically avoid, again, any of the copyright DMCA stuff, and have anything that you might be able to monetize from streams on there come back to you. So, it still takes effort. You still have to promote it right, and they still have to announce again the app officially being streamable. I do know that they did test that this past weekend, and that they are going to update it to stream on the app as well, besides you guys looking it up on local TV or gray.tv for out-of-market games. But it's huge. Again, having control of your own stuff is massive, instead of having to be at the mercy of something that is third party or something that you might not see coming. Like, I cannot stress that enough, that, as long as they're giving you access, which they are, you've seen that they are you can access these pretty easily, sans maybe paying $8 a month for NFL Plus. It's a big deal. Like, they are still getting these games out, and they're going to have more ways to be able to help grow themselves through their channels, rather than having to lean on channels that they're not sure what they could get from it. I think that's a win to me.
It is to me, because it's like you said, they're having someone else do it. But
Well, that's the thing too. Great
ones,
TV is their production wing. That's the beauty of it. Not only are they getting broadcast, they're getting help from their own production company making these games. That's massive to have the production covered. It's massive to have it.
And experienced people, not just some random rookies.
That too.
Because here's the thing, you've seen some arena games too. I saw when Bandits played at the California Thunder, Ted Ginn Jr. owned that team. They had someone with a cell phone on a stick, and the logo was in the middle of the game the whole time. I was like,
yeah.
You gotta be kidding me.
I know. And credit that the Thunder were definitely on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to the league levels. I will put that out there, but still, like, look, you're going to get decent broadcasts. Like, great TV it's Tupelo that they own as the production company. They have done several sporting events that are high profile, mainly if we're talking football. They have worked with the NFL in terms of preseason content, which, yeah, preseason games, they aren't one-to-one like NFL on Fox or whatever, but most of them are pretty much NFL standard broadcasts. Like, that's good. So when they go on NFL Network and they broadcast these games through Tupelo, you should expect at least, what is the standard NFL broadcasting elements. That's a good thing. I really do believe that. And again, TV, there's a higher standard on television that you have to make, especially with a deal like NFL Network going on cable. They can't F around with this. Like, I know the network doesn't need arena football per se. Like, it can still go on and do NFL coverage if it wanted to. You have to button yourself up. So there is a standard they have to meet. That is a big thing. And they got the right guys in Gray who specialize in production to do it with them. So I like what they're doing. I really do believe this is a good deal. And I know that, like I said, a lot of people conditioned by YouTube, but I promise you, if we're talking financials and what is good to help find monetary streams for the league, this is the good way of doing it. That's better than YouTube. I promise you it is.
And also, too, just for everyone here for week one, all the games are kind of packed on the Saturday and Sunday. Then the future weeks, it'll be like Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday to give you just a little bit of breathe here, room.
Mm-hmm.
And NFL Network, they're about 3 games a week, and then see what the local games spread around there. So it's not going to be like, oh my lord, I'm going to get so tired and fall time to sleep here. Because even with arena football fans, you got a lot of things to go here, there, especially because there's going to be quite a few cross like as you and I are, we'll watch some UFL games and we'll go back to a rink. The heck, we might actually watch some on our phone, some on our television right there, some of our.
And I'm going to be multi-streaming like mad come Saturday.
Yeah.
My computer screen / television are going to be overloaded. Yours probably the same. The
NFL Network is going to go on here, then I'll put the other stuff there. So I guess the next thing we'll talk, because it's weird to say this about a league so quickly, because with the Springfield talk about expansion, but they kind of already announced it, so it's kind of had to be.
Yeah.
Because
bring it up.
Yeah, originally because 2 teams were actually they're going to start with 18, but that stopped on the announcement. And then we already know that there's going to be 2 teams next year, which you are kind of somewhat have a little bit of a linkage to, because one is the Chicago Rush, and people that don't know, Zach has some ties to Chicago. Heck, his team is technically on the clock right now.
Yeah, well, he'll say on the clock coming up here and first pick overall in the draft. I got a good feeling that QB out of USC I've been hearing about is going to be going over there. Maybe I'm wrong, but he seems like a good kid. Will, he seems like a good kid.
And then another pick, after that after a few picks too.
Yeah, so. I was going to say 2 first rounders on Thursday. I'm going to be thrilled to see what happens there. But yeah, I'm a Chicago sports fan, and I'll be honest with you, when it was hinted that the Rush are coming back, I'm stoked. That was one of the more fondly remembered brands from the 2000s, like height of the league, back when it was like that era, exactly when AFL was borderline the 5 seed of the sports world, where MLS is kind of now, where it was vying with MLS to be that number 5 sport in the U.S. But things didn't fall that way. But the Rush, I like the brand. I like seeing a Chicago team. They were trying to get things going. There was rumors that they were going to play in Rockville, Illinois, which I got chewed out for being an idiot and saying that Rockville is part of the Chicago Metro. It is not. I am a dummy.
There's a lot of suburbs in Chicago, man.
But Rockville is not one of them. I've taken my lumps on that, and I will never say that ever again. Post that announcement. But they were supposed to play possibly in Rockville because they played there in the past. But again, look, when you can't get to 20 teams and you're looking at the divisions, 16 made more sense. And it doesn't hurt when you have 2 teams that maybe have situations that are a little more rushed, which both of them kind of did in a way, that they might step back. Remember, their owner, Tuo Clark, he was actually supposed to be more of like the entertainment wing of the AFL, which he kind of does have that role, last I understood still, but he was offered this ownership position like really last minute to be the Chicago owner. And He is from Chicago. He has roots in Chicago. But I think they did the right thing in stalling it out to next year. And to kind of lean into our other expansion team, as we're hearing, I think that that's a good strategy, given that Arizona is already kind of hitting the ground running in a lot of regards with their planning in good ways.
Yeah, like here's the thing. Out of all whenever I see a team with expansion next year, the Arizona Bandits social media is like the most like posting of an expansion team I have ever seen. They already got sponsors like Mr. Good Sense and all sorts of stuff there. And heck, their owner and president, Matthew Mason, just came on, like we mentioned before the show started, on a podcast in Arizona, like telling about his experience and like how he got into this. Because originally he was going to be the owner for Bakersfield, California. And if you want to talk about insurance, yeah, doing a team in California.
Well, I mean, he went into the depths of it, and actually listening to that combo, it makes me question how IFL teams are doing that right now. Because I mean, if the workers' comp numbers are like what he said, I'm wondering how it's working out in San Jose or San Diego with those two. But they're obviously getting things done. So nonetheless, it's a new team from scratch. They didn't like the workers' comp deal because Bakersfield is like similar to how you're talking with St. Louis here, Will. They were expected to play. They were announced as a team that was expected to be part of this league to kick things off. It didn't happen. And anyone that's on here and hasn't listened to that podcast, it's from AZ Family Sports, which is like ABC's affiliate out here in Phoenix. And they do a podcast with essentially their sports journal, their sports reporter out there. You should listen. It's a very informative interview, not only for the team, but like some of the league elements that they had with decisions on like the California team. Because here's the deal, he has roots in Arizona. From what I understand, he played for Arizona State for a spell in college. He's had ties to Arizona football for a long time. Matthew Mason, that is. And, as you said, Will, the team was originally supposed to be in California. He was supposed to be the president for the Bakersfield squad. That fell through when the workers' comp issues were rearing its ugly head to where it was like what we expect from California workers' comp. It's pretty up there. And so they moved on. They tried to talk about Vegas. Matt says that he didn't want to do Vegas, which, personal preference it sounded like, and they said, okay, whatever. But here's the kicker for me that's interesting, because the whole thing with the Arizona Bandits that we have understood from the public eye is that the league itself went, we're going to have an Arizona team no matter what. Because remember, when Lee Hutton came out and originally talked on Arena Fan about the teams, he heavily hinted the Rattlers are going to be part of the AFL.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, they did talk with the Rattlers and the Sharks and a few other of these teams in the IFL. And I'll be frank, they kind of got cocky with some of the requisites, and the teams kind of kicked them aside because there were some high requirements one way or another to get in that the teams didn't want to give over, if you guys are catching my drift. So they backed off. But what Matt says in this interview is interesting, because I've always thought the league pushed this, that they wanted to go to Arizona. What actually happened is Matt asked the league if they could go to Arizona. So that ownership group, which is Matthew Mason and two other gentlemen, by the way, are the ones trying to institute this. And here's the thing, Will. This is what is fascinating. So the Rattlers moved to the West Valley to Glendale. Now, if you are not familiar with the Phoenix metro area, with Phoenix and Tempe and like Scottsdale and Glendale and all these other places, Glendale is by metro standard, like far West Valley. It is the West Valley itself. That is where all the teams play out there, like the Arizona Cardinals. It's where the Coyotes used to play before they stopped paying their bills. And so now the Rattlers sit there across the street from the from Arizona's Cardinals' own stadium in Desert Diamond. But the thing is, they used to play in downtown Phoenix, which is closer to more like Central Valley for that instance. They moved farther away. Now, East Valley people, I'm in Chandler, Tempe, Scottsdale, Mesa, Gilbert. For me, it's a 40-minute drive to go to Glendale. And I am like borderline east to central of the valley. Scottsdale, Mesa, like we're pushing like 50 minutes here. The thing that works for this, if they are going to play with a team in the same metro, is that Phoenix is a huge metro. The East Valley is far enough away, just enough to where you can advertise to those communities and say, hey, why not just travel to us? And that's what's going to be the kicker. Now, the other kicker, Will, want to hear your thoughts on this, and I still don't know how to think about this. There are claims that a new arena is being built, and it's not just a arena. The owner has stated that it is a NHL quality arena.
Yep.
And that if he wanted the Phoenix Coyotes to come back, or the Arizona Coyotes to come back, that he could have housed them. Now, that's interesting. Supposedly this is getting announced next week, by the way. So we're going to hear very soon. But it's supposed to be nearby where their supposed arena is for 2025. Fascinating stuff, Will. And I mean, you're a hockey fan even more than I am. So like that was like a revelation where I'm like, I'm pausing the video going, wait, what?
Yeah.
What did he just say?
Just to get a quick motion, because with the whole movement of Arizona moving to Salt Lake and probably get rebranded here, I think it's possible. I just don't see who currently has the Arizona Coyotes rights still being the owner, but that's a whole other discussion for a show.
Yes.
If he's able to do it, That will be amazing. I'm just gonna
Well,
say.
now credit the rights to the Coyotes. If I'm remembering correct, the owner who sold still gets the branding rights.
Yeah.
So it's still the same owners. I know. 1 week after they relocate too,
Yeah.
but yeah. I mean, to be fair though, I think I'm trying to justify what this is before next week to kind of wrap my head around it. The new plans for the Coyotes are they want to play in North Phoenix. It's just north of the downtown Phoenix area, like the 101 in Scottsdale Road, I believe it is like that area. So there's like a big land property being up for bid that if they can win the bid, they can bring the team back within like 5 years and have the same branding and everything. But if they can't win the bid, future of the team's kind of in doubt. But before that, the original pitch was for the Coyotes. They were supposed to play in Tempe. The original pitch was they were trying to build a new arena and an entertainment district in Tempe, and it was up for vote by the county to pay taxes. The county voted no by almost double digits, mind you, and basically said, "Sorry, we're kick rocks. We're not going to pay for your hockey arena." And that's essentially what killed off for the Coyotes' hope to stay in town, because they had to play an extra year in Mullet Arena, which is a 5,000 seat college hockey venue. Good arena for college hockey, terrible arena for professional hockey.
Yeah.
At least in terms of the look, it's still a nice venue. But the thing is, we've been wondering, where is this land? And I'll tell you, Will, I went by Mullet Arena today. And I've been digging with some people on like possible locations this could be. And Mason has said, if you've watched the interview, that it is, quote, a fireworks shot away from where they're playing. Now, there's only two places in the East Valley they could realistically play: Mullet Arena or Desert Financial. And I've talked with people about Desert Financial. People despise Desert Financial as a basketball venue in this area. It is old. And I do not think they are playing in Desert Financial. Also, the Bandits were in negotiations with Mullet Arena before they decided to punt to 2025. So it's probably Mullet Arena. And going over there is some development land of decent size, like 1 block away, catty corner to Mullet Arena, that has been ripped up recently, that I did go check out today. I don't know who owns it, and credit, we're probably not going to find out unless we see next week, but it's not too crazy how he's talked that there is land. I'm just wondering who's financing it, because this is AFL. This isn't NHL or any NBA. This is AFL. So that's where the pause comes. But there is stuff. If anything, it just makes me want to see what happens next week, because minimum, they're going to at least tell you where they're playing next year, which is probably Mullet Arena, by the way. It's probably going to be where they play ASU hockey at. I'm being honest.
And of course, with that announcement, folks, because people don't know here, the AFL is going to have a 10-game week season.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to have playoffs. I'm trying to remember. It's 3 to 4, because I know it's like they get the top seeds will be playing in their home stadiums, but then the other seeds, they're going to be playing at neutral site for future expansion cities.
That's what it seems like is the case. And actually, they did confirm. Matt did confirm that whatever the venue will be for next year for the AFL. Which is, again, I'm highly positive it's Mullet Arena. I don't see them playing at Desert Financial. That it's most likely they're going to be playing that it sounds like they have a neutral site confirmed July 6th, that they're going to play probably at Mullet Arena for a playoff game. There's been a lot of talk about that online. The league sees it as energizing a fan base for next year and announcing essentially an expansion team coming, is how I view it, where they're basically going to throw a party. And I do find David's question about a St. Louis neutral site, I don't know.
Yeah.
The only thing I've heard is it sounds like they want to play a game in Chicago in some capacity, and they want to play in Arizona in some capacity, because those are confirmed expansions.
Yeah.
Beyond that, not sure. And plus, the top seeded teams will want to play in their home venues. I know for a fact Albany has said that they are pushing back and want to play. If they get a playoff game, they want to play an MVP arena. So
David, it's more than likely no, because of the renovation. Because as the renovations I stated earlier, what the biggest one is they're replacing the roof. So
yeah.
So
I mean, that's kind of crucial when you need a net system hung up.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing: the Family Arena needed the renovations. It's like It's kind of interesting though. The Dome and also Fan Arena is getting and they're both government-owned buildings too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep. Yep.
and because another thing when it comes to with the expansion stuff, because Lee Hunt actually did an interview again with the show you were on last week, Arena Football League podcast, and he already confirmed like they wanted to at least at minimum 4 teams for 2025.
Right. And remember, they're trying to max out at 24, it sounds like, but they
Yeah.
want to get it. The sooner they can get to 24, the better is what it's sounding
So
like. So, yeah.
yeah, so more than likely 1 team added to each division for these next 2 cycles. Cause Arizona, more than likely the West Division.
Yes, very much so. I do not. The only other one, there's no really other one to me that would make sense. Like, it's South, but like, no, it should be it's the West Division team. It's going to be a West Division team.
Then Chicago, I can make the case for the East Division for that.
I think they were supposed to be the East Division team until things didn't work out. Because if you see Minnesota, let's face it, that's not East Division. I really thought they were supposed to be Central Division. I think that they moved Minnesota into the East because it was out of necessity. And I think next year, what you're going to see is they will maybe rearrange the divisions a little bit, and Minnesota becomes a Central Division team to more align with travel. Because keep in mind, you're part of the reason these divisions were made like this, especially the Central, is to help with travel cost as well. You know, it is familiar ground, but travel costs are a big cost for these teams, especially at this arena level. So I very much think they will move Minnesota into that group with Iowa and Salina, Southwest Kansas, and company next year because it makes more sense just given the geographics.
Well, if they do that, the Central might actually have more teams than they thought because more than likely when STL gets in, they're going to go in the Central Division.
See, I think they'll go to the East.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if you think about it,
the Chicago and St. Louis rivalry there.
See, that's what I'm thinking. Hang on. Yeah, because we would replace Minnesota with Chicago, so that leaves them at 4. You bring St. Louis in, that bumps it to 5. I think because it's on the Mississippi River, and I know it's west on the bank, but I think it's closer in regards to what they want for East than what Minnesota is with Minneapolis, per se. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I view it. If they don't do it, then clearly they'll leave Minnesota alone in the East, and then they just put St. Louis in the Central. So there's arguments for both. I think they'll go in the East, though, personally. That's my opinion.
Now, the South Division, when Lee Hunt put on the interview, he said there was one other team that they were this close to getting. You know what that location was?
Let me think back to what I want to say it was Tampa. No, I thought Tampa was on the radar. Give me one more guess. I'm trying to, see, this throws me for a curve. Cleveland was definitely mentioned, so that throws another thing around, but I'll let you, what was your, I'm not remembering well. Please save
Austin,
me.
Texas.
Yes, that's right. They were supposed to have Austin. Chris Siegfried even mentioned at one of the initial West Texas press conferences that Austin was almost a done deal. The thing is, though, I've heard Austin is almost impossible given the arena conditions and the venue's commitments to their own hockey teams.
So that's one option, though. He did mention 2 other cities for expansion because they're probably planning ahead to do for the 24. One is that probably will be a future for, it's kind of hard to tell, either the East, it might be more East, would be Charleston.
Okay.
And then for another team like this one, it's a little bit interesting because you can argue for both either the East or heck, maybe northern part of West, but Milwaukee.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there's a chance there. I think what you'd want personally is maybe they balance. I think it's more they want to line it up with balancing out the divisions is how it is. Cause I think that's part of the reason, even besides crunch time, why they didn't do 18, because you would have unbalanced divisions in 2 of them with Arizona and Chicago. So I'm wondering who the 4th one would be if they can execute it. Cause I mean, I know Tampa is one that people have talked about, like, can we get a Tampa team back, or whatever. So that's the thing. Oh, and can you bring up this quote? So that, Brian, that's a little different. That's supposed to be an exhibition game, though. So
Yeah,
that's I'm wondering how that'll go. I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I have none of the any international stuff Lee Hutton brings up. I
yeah.
kind of
The
hear and I kind of hear and I just throw to the side because we're not at the stage about discussing
That's
international
like
stuff
4 or 5
seriously.
years down the road for that type of stuff. That's for
Yeah,
both. No, that's for
Mexico
both.
City's definitely a showcase. It's not an actual expansion team. That was definitely a showcase thing they've thrown out for trying to like grow the game. But look, yeah, I throw any international talk like instantly into the bin of all right, we'll revisit this later or whatever. You know, like I don't really put it on my radar right now. It's too early. It's just way too early to talk that.
Yeah, yeah. It's going to be interesting because, like I said, like do I like for locally here for St. Louis? Do I think we have a good chance next year? Yes, but like I said, like things could go according to plan because I don't know. We're going to have to see because one thing I think they also put a hold is because how the UFL was with the scheduling, and later is we'll see if that either gets pushed back or not. But you have to see because those seasons are going to interlock at some point, and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
want to see for a St. Louis owner
That
like they could still do good if it's not on the same day. That's what I, and it is
this
cheap.
it's tricky. That's the only thing that's held me up where I'm like I do know that the league's high on St. Louis because of the talks and because they have consistently had the venue itself tell local media that they have still been in contact with the league and want to get something done. But I mean, that's the thing with the spring football presence right now. I mean, there's so much oxygen taken out of the room with the Battlehawks. You know, maybe this back half of the year, you know, you can get some momentum, but that's the tricky part. You're competing with a much larger fan base right now that you have to appease to for a sport that hasn't really been, I would say, serious levels since the Stampede. I know they've had teams, but like I really haven't treated St. Louis as a serious market since the 90s when the Stampede existed for 2 seasons.
We'll just have to see. It depends how they market it because like honestly, with our circles, we know how the UFL has been marketing the last few years. It's how they market, who owns it, how they market it, and how they get close with the community. Because I know you didn't want to mention the scam league, but I'll just mention real quickly
It's okay.
when that Stampede team was going to be coming, the Facebook page for that team was about had 3 to 4 times as many followers as that league Facebook page just for that team alone.
And maybe I'm wrong because I see David chiming in again, you know, and maybe that is the play, like, you know, appease to the St. Louis or the St. Louisian available here that are folks that kind of associate and are in that city bond. I will say, for what I've seen with the Battlehawks, the people that live in St. Louis do bond over living in St. Louis hardcore, be it through sports. So there is that chance. I think maybe if you do partner and you make it where it's like a mutual partnership thing, you know, that would be great. But that's the only thing is I think they're going to have the task of saying how do we differentiate ourselves and bring in people that are already energized and being sucked away by an outdoor property in the same metro. You know, that's the challenge. Can they do it?
Well,
Possible, but it is a big challenge compared to many of the other AFL markets.
technically, though, I will say San Antonio is having that deal right now with the Brahmas and
And
Gunslingers.
then that is true. That is you are not wrong. I just think that there's a more ravenous approach in St. Louis than there is currently San Antonio. Unfortunately, that has not lived up to the AAF standard yet. Is the thing,
Yeah.
but you know, I'll be fascinated. The AFL clearly wants St. Louis. They keep saying they want it. The venue keeps saying that they are talking with them still. We'll see. I mean, the expansion's going to happen, or unfortunately, I hate to bring it up, expansion slash or replacement is going to happen. You know, if things don't work out for certain teams, as we know with the history. But
Yeah.
St. Louis seems to be at least in the equation, and that's a good thing for you guys. So I like it.
Yeah. And before we end the show, I wanted to let's do like some picks for the first 8 games if you want to, Zach.
Ooh, yeah, let's do the picks. I like your thinking.
I
I'm
got you.
glad you.
I'm gonna break them down by how they started from time wise instead of by channel here.
Okay.
First game we have the Philadelphia Soul at the Louisiana Voodoo. The first game, right? You got two of the low teams right now. With the thing is though, Louisiana was a. Have they announced ownership yet? It's still technically a mystery with the Voodoo right now.
No, they have owners, but it has consistently been stated that they want to keep anonymity. Um,
That's a
I don't think
first.
we're. I really don't think we're gonna know who these people are unless someone like digs and finds this. So, we'll see. But they have consistently stated, even the ex team president has stated they do have owners. It's just the guys that own it, they don't want to be publicly mentioned right now. And supposedly it's a celebrity. I don't know how big of a celebrity, but we'll find out someday, I guess. It's all I can put out there. But yes, between the two teams that I think had the most turmoil over the offseason, mostly Philadelphia up until late with the Voodoo here. Yeah, it is that way, and it's going to be in Blackham Coliseum. Tickets went on sale today, by the way. They're general admission across the board, so we'll see how filled that venue is. I'm not expecting a ton, but we'll find out.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna go with I don't know. Like I would. It's kind of like, do you go? I'm gonna just go with a little bias here. I just want Patrick Fiddle to get some good luck with him with the soul, actually. So, and he said that he does like an all like guns a blazing type offense. So I want to go with that with the soul.
Mm. Right now, I really see. I'm not sure. I'm actually going to lean Philadelphia here. I think that the Soul do have pieces that can possibly make a staple to start off. They were a little bit lighter, at least on the depth chart I got with guys coming in, and they are leaning more heavily on the local talent, more so than say the AFL talent. And yes, they are $20 GA tickets. Actually, speaking of that, I did have someone confirm to me that the site they're using, I think it's called Fever, is giving codes for $5 discounts for those tickets through accounting
Sorry,
for an
Brian.
app. So it is $15 if you use a certain code that if you apply for like an account through that ticketing system. So keep that in mind. But yes, tickets are on sale now. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to go with Philadelphia. I think they're going to start Aaron Aiken, who has had solid momentum. They have a pretty decent receiver and defensive group in the secondary for me. That I think does have a bit more of an edge over Louisiana. I could be wrong, but I like who they have behind center a bit more because the guy does have more talent surrounding him and a bit more instant arena experience to go with that too.
And don't worry, Brian, there's a chance Louisiana could be a big surprise here this season. Any team could be a surprise here right?
It's week one. Stuff can change on a freaking dime. So these things could be widely wrong. I'm going off like week one is completely on roster like basis. That's all it is. It is complete roster evaluation. So
yeah. And then the second game, there's actually going 3 8 o'clock games going on at the same time here. For the one I have first is the Wichita Regulators at the Billings Outlaws. This one's easy. I'm going to go with Billings, the Outlaws here.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I'm going to go with Billings. To me, the much more veteran coaching staff. I also like who they have on the roster on many levels. In particular, some names that I stuck out was Nazir Streeter, who has been on who's been a spring football talent at different levels up in the outdoor leagues. But I also like Isaac Harker, who is a CFL quarterback that they have on there. And if they don't use Harker, Danny Southwick is the journeyman of all journeymen in arena and indoor football. So they have two guys that I think definitely elevate the game a bit more. Wichita has Jeff Legree, who's been a backup at different places, and they leaned a lot on roster guys that they have kept from their initial independent season. I don't know if I think that is a good enough talent pool to beat Billings week one. But hey, surprises happen. I just think there's a lot of cards stacked in the Outlaws' direction for many a reason that we just listed.
Yeah. All I know is hope. I'm kind of curious with all the betting lines going on with football. We've seen with the UFL and now with the arena ball. I wonder what the betting lines, how many deuces will happen in week one.
I would love to see that prop bet. personally. I think that would be a really great prop bet for especially AFL guys. I love that.
Yeah. Then, of course, we got the first NFL Network game of the weekend, which is the Hall of Fame game, the Atlanta Predators at Albany Firebirds. This one's tough, actually.
This is very tough. I mean, I will say though, they picked out of any of the matchups you could have listed this for the game one. This is the best one, not only because it's two of the best teams in the league on paper, but it's also 25-year anniversary of Albany winning an Arena Bowl against Orlando back in 1999 as well. So good lead-in game for that first one. They're also supposed to have a bunch of AFL ex-veterans at the game and honoring a bunch of AFL guys from the years past. So it should be a big celebration. My thing is going to be, it's going to come down to coaching, I think. Both of these teams have roster pieces that match up well with each other and can negate each other. I'll tell you, with Orlando, I know you mentioned Vinny Testaverde Jr., but Drew Powell is the bigger name and is going to probably be the starter in this. He was a freaking speed demon in the run game in terms of breaking out of the pocket in the IFL for the Arizona Rattlers, and he has a cannon for an arm. So he definitely can chalk it up. Orlando also sneakily has some damn good receiving options on their end. Clarence Williams, for example, excellent guy that they were able to bring back as well. On the Albany side, I don't know what I have to say beyond that Darius Prince is on there, and they have pretty much a ton of guys from their championship roster coming in too. The only question mark I was having was Jake Medlock, probably going to be starting as QB for Albany, but he's worked with Damian Ware in the past in the IFL, and he's put up pretty good numbers with Damian Ware in the past in the IFL. I'm giving the home team the edge, but this is going to be a fun game, Will. This is going to be a very fun kickoff game. I love that this is the kickoff matchup. Really do. It's going to be a blast.
You know, I'm going to be that guy said, history, it will not repeat itself. I'm going with Orlando.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
Hey.
It's going to be fun. Oh,
yes.
I can't wait.
Here's the thing.
Oh.
The one thing that you and I both like about arena football, the organized chaos that it brings.
Arena football is chaos in the best combined package. It's so good. I love arena for the chaotic moments. No sport brings chaos like arena football does. And I specifically, by the way, arena football. Just want to lay it out there. That style brings more chaos than any of them in the spot. Oh, it's going to be great.
And just a quick thing, this game here was probably the first football game to have trash talking among the players, the referees, and also the coaches.
I miss it so much. I'm actually gonna stream Road to Glory tomorrow to kind of just keep the vibe going and just talk. So gonna have a fun time. I actually have a dynasty mode with the Columbus Destroyers with Matt Nagy at quarterback.
Gotcha. So, and the next game, this is actually an interesting matchup to me. The Iowa Rampage at the Rapid City Marshall battle the two of the red teams. Of course, you got one team that has experience and one that just started, but you got a lot of experience with the offensive line with the Iowa Rampage. Then you got Rapid City with going with all they have there, and also that atmosphere too at home.
Right. My goodness. I will tell you, not too shabby of a matchup here. Rapid City's going to be rocking. I think they're going to have a pretty damn good crowd to kick this off. If their preseason game showed anything, and I've checked their ticket sales as of late, they're doing pretty good. They're going to have a pretty rocking crowd out there in South Dakota. To me, it comes down to the roster construction this year, Rapid City. Did they do enough to elevate their game past the low quality teams that they have had in the first 2 years they have existed? Iowa's done a decent job in their construction, and besides Tyrus Jackson, they've got AFL talent in terms of coaching staff on offensive and defensive coordinator. Remember, they've got they got Scipio as the, or not Scipio, sorry. They have Donovan Morgan as the offensive coordinator out there. One of the greatest receivers in AFL history, going to be doing OC work. And then they have James Romaine, former, top tier AFL defensive back, who has been coaching in various IFL roles since he retired from the Philadelphia Soul, as their defensive coordinator out there. So good coaching staff behind Jackson. Cato, I like as a QB, and he's gotten better every year. Not saying Villanueva can't perform, but I do think from what I've seen, I'm leaning Iowa. I got to go Iowa on this. But another one that I think is going to be close. I think Rapid City will be a competitive team even more so than they have been in recent CIF seasons. I just don't think they get the win week one, but it'll be a fun one out there in South Dakota.
As a big man myself, I'm going to go with probably the more experienced big men on the team. The same with Iowa as
Yeah,
well.
that helps
Now
too.
the next one, two looks like pretty good run organizations at the moment. The Minnesota Myth at Nashville Cats. Mm-hmm.
Now, yeah, in terms of the exposure, I think they're both doing an excellent job. In terms of my confidence in roster, now I'm not saying Minnesota is one that I don't like, but if I'm comparing roster constructions, I'm going with Nashville. I like Nashville a bit more. I think that they are a little more complete on both sides of the ball. Ramon Atkins was one of the up and coming stars in the IFL last season with the Tucson Sugar Skulls. That was a huge talent pickup for not only the team but for the league, getting him to come to Nashville to be the starting quarterback. And I'm a huge fan of the receiving group, not only because it's, there's been some good guys in there that they're bringing in, but one of them that I think is going to be showing up is going to be huge is Johannes Tyler, 6'3", comes in from Ball State. Dude, I watched him play at Ball State for a while, and great hands, great range, and someone that I think can excel in a league like this. Minnesota does have some decent options in Zach Reeder being their quarterback who has IFL experience. I just don't know if their roster is going to be able to compete with what Nashville has on that I think is going to be a much more stable group. And even though there's flack about Kokinos being the head coach and that people are worried about him given his track record, his last stint was with a 3-15 Washington Valor squad. I still believe that that's going to be a winning team. I think they get the win week one at home.
Yeah, I got Nashville as well. Next game, we already had it already in preseason, Washington Wolfpack versus the Oregon Black Bears, though I doubt they were running anything seriously and also had their best players on the field at the same time. So pretty much it's just bring it from the beginning. So, and these are two new teams. I'm gonna go with the Black Bears because with Jeremiah Spicer and with how it's been for his life, I just want to have Spicer's team win this week here.
I Washington, I like head coach J.R. Wells' energy, but I don't know if that's enough to overcome the Black Bears roster. Like honestly, the Black Bears roster, I have to stress again, it's kind of a sneakily good roster. Like for the talent they brought in. But like I said, my only concern is who's QBing for Oregon and who they're going to lead in with, and if Connor Kagi can step up and have a better performance this stint in arena ball than last. But beyond that, yeah, I think Oregon's got the better two-way construction of a roster here. I gotta do it. Yes, I am. The way is the way. I'm not all of it. Personally, if I were to default, I'm going to give Tim Capper even more cred than I do. But
yeah.
What do I know?
Yeah.
I got Oregon though. I'm with you. I'm going to lean Oregon. I don't know if this will be I don't know if it's going to be like the preseason game where it's close, but I'm with you. There's no way that was what you're going to see again compared to week over week. I do think this time, I think Oregon steps up and wins by multiple scores here.
Yeah. Next game, for Sunday, the Georgia Force at West Texas on NFL Network. I think this is a no-brainer. West Texas.
It is West Texas, and even though I don't know much enough about Georgia's roster because they don't post anything. They did pick up Justin Arth. He is going to be their quarterback, so that was a good pickup. But yeah, I mean, look, West Texas across the board, guys. It's like NAL, IFL veteran, like top tier talent on every level. Like this team, when I say that I am confident they will be one of the teams that is either challenging or will make Arena Bowl 33, that I mean that. They are the one team that I am almost like locking in at this point. I think they win the South, and they will either be in that championship contention or they will be in the Arena Bowl minimum. So Jonathan Bain, Devin Wilson, that connection, those guys have played with each other. It's great chemistry already. I mean, defensively, they're stacked at many levels on there. Cecil Cherry, by the way, is one of their linebackers in that team. That's a pretty damn good guy for indoor and outdoor levels that is still getting opportunities. I just don't see that not being a good squad. The West Texas wins. That is like my lock of the week is West Texas winning against Georgia.
Then the final game on Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, the Southwest Kansas Storms go to Saline at Liberty. So I don't know. I kind of want, like, once again, like I mentioned with the players there at Southwest Kansas, I kind of want Southwest Kansas to pull the upset on this because I see.
Yeah, I I think this will be a fun one again. It's another one that's going to be pretty competitive and it'll come down to the wire. It all comes down to personally how well cohesive this roster is with, between its outdoor guys they brought in and if they can get the indoor game locked down really quick, and Caden Walters, who does, by the way, I feel bad not even mentioning this, he does have IFL experience. And he has played in the past on various IFL squads too. But like, between them and Salina, who again, Salina basically is bringing back for the most part a runner-up to championship squad from like 2 years prior. That's a big first test. But the Storm, they're the underdog, not only I think in this game on the chart for like if we were doing betting odds, but I think just the fact they're the underdog team because they're the smallest market in the AFL. They're in Dodge City, Kansas, which, people know what Dodge City is, but it's not a big market for people and size. So, there's a chip on their shoulder. And they've said that in podcasts that I've watched too, that these guys know they're playing as the smallest community. But they do have pieces that I think will punch the Liberty in the teeth, at least for a good chunk of time. I'm not sold they're going to upset the Liberty, but I think people will be surprised how good the Storm are coming out of week one.
Yeah, like it just like I kind of want to pick, like I want to be that guy, get that upset there on some of the picks there because
I mean it doesn't hurt. I mean I think out of all the games this week, if you're not picking a game that's like 50-50 ball, like I think Southwest Kansas has a good opportunity to upset Salina. It's just that I'm basing you and I are basing picks on the fact that Salina brought back a pretty damn good team from previous iterations. Even if it is AFL, there's good athletes on that roster and it's a well-organized organization. So, big challenge. And they have to go on the road to the Tony's Pizza Event Center, which, I've been checking up on their attendance and they've started rapidly increasing ticket sales as of late. There's going to be a decent crowd there. So, they're not going to make it easy.
Yeah, it's a long road here from here to the playoffs, and I know I believe you had your picks of like West Texas and Albany, or was it West Texas and Orlando for you?
No, I'm doing Albany. I can see it going either or personally, but I'm leaning Albany, given the home venue, and I think that the chemistry with Coach Ware bringing in Jake Medlock is going to be enough to where, plus again, Darius, here's the thing though, not even that Darius Prince, like Darius Prince, they have Philip Barnett, they have Markel Wade, they brought back like high quality talents at 1, 2, and 3 position for receiving options. And Markel Wade and Philip Barnett are really good defenders. So it's going to be tough. Like it's going to be a tough, fun game. That is the game of the week easily, not only because it's kickoff, but the fact that it is, to me, two of the best teams in the league for sure on paper. So I got Albany, but you and I have split. So I'm glad we did because I think that this is an either or game. I can see arguments either side.
Yeah. And if Albany does win the Arena Bowl for this iteration, that's just great after what happened with them with Antonio Brown for that market. Dear
That
Lord.
would be a feel good recovery story, honestly. And it would be probably something that the community rallied behind them trying to get a team back. So that would be such a feel-good ending to the year. Even if they get to the Arena Bowl, I would say that that's a huge win. Just being able to reset and say, hey, we got rid of this bad juju from the past. Let's hit the ground running and make this an Albany thing with guys that we trust, and we're not going to let a story like that dictate our future with our city. is the thing. Albany, I'll be honest, Capital Region people, they're hardcore about their Capital Region stuff. It kind of reminds me of St. Louis. It's kind of why I like Albany as a market. It's like the small, scrappy underdog in New York that doesn't get as much recognition, just like how St. Louis and the national stage is kind of like a smaller, scrappy underdog. I just like that vibe. I love rooting for the underdog because it's a good story when there's winners like that.
Yeah. Also, one team that, like I said before, because I know Riffle because I played this game along with my brother. The one team I wish they did bring back, and I played Dragons.
Oh,
whoa, hello.
You're back.
That was weird.
You're saying the one team you played is
the New York Dragons.
There were a lot. The amount of people requesting the New York Dragons back online, I would love to see them. I just, knowing the workers' comp in California and how New York is kind of mimicking in that, it would take a pretty big owner with some really good patience and market know-how to get people to buy in.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I would love to see them go back to, like, say, Long Island where they used to play and do it on there.
Yeah, and I doubt they'll ever try. I don't know if they would even probably dare play at Madison Square Garden. Could they try to play?
No. No way in hell. That was tried in the 90s. It was a massive failure because of the cost, and the New York market in downtown especially, it's too crowded. Your best bet is going to be, honestly, where the Dragons played, if you were going to keep it close to New York City, is like Nassau, like Long Island area.
I don't even know if Brooklyn could even do that. Brooklyn Stadium could even do arena football or not. It's weirdly built.
The dimensions would have to be tested. I just don't know if Brooklyn would work either in advertising. Maybe it would. Maybe if you made the team the Brooklyn whatever it is and didn't make it New York, because you see that's with the Nets, they made it specifically the Brooklyn Nets, not the New York Nets, the Brooklyn Nets. So maybe you do it that way. But again, that's a stretch. New York's not really a market I think that should be on the radar right now. This league is in its infancy and it wants established franchises. So, I don't know if we were talking if I'm thinking AFL history, how the late 90s became the whole we're getting bigger, so let's go bigger market expansion and move teams around. Because as you may know, the Iowa Barnstormers eventually got sacrificed and became the New York Dragons to help with expanding the league into big media markets.
Yeah.
And I'm glad David brought it up just as I brought it up. So, we're both on the same page. But that's the thing. We're not anywhere near that right now.
That's good. That's years down the road, Chris.
Yeah.
So
look, this is all about building a base again. This is starting extremely from scratch.
Yeah.
You have to be this is like how the setup is right now. You kind of have to be mix of biggish with smaller market because you can't be in every major market. That just people won't do it. They'll get distracted. So that's where you're at right now.
Plus,
and that's okay.
Plus, you're playing around the same time as the CFL.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good strategy. Every other look, not to compare, but there's reasons why indoor has kind of stuck with it because it's going to markets that maybe are decent ones people know, but maybe they're starved for a football team or starved for a sports franchise they can rally behind. So this is a good place. Start with a base, grow from there. Really, again, circling all the way back to the beginning of the show, cautious optimism, get through this first year, see what you got, and then use an entire full year of lead up to just kill it in 2025. I know that they want to kill it this year, but if they're really going to kill it, it's really 2025 when they have less crunch and a full season of teams that know what they're doing out of the gate. There's no expansion elements, no rule book making, no indoctoring people and getting them equipment. The people that stick around, they'll know what they're doing right away. That's what I'm basically waiting on. But have a good season that shows that you can produce a level of football that not only challenges the industry's own leagues at showing that they can live up to what they've promised, but shows that they're back as a legitimate sports organization that deserves public attention.
Yeah. Well, Zach, thank you for coming on the debut show, STL Arena. Honestly, it's going to be hard to top this one with you as a guest, to be quite honest. Would love to have you on in the future, but I know you're really busy now. And honestly, all of us are going to be all of us here in Arena fans right now. going to be go into these games here. Thankfully, the next few weeks they are spread out. Thank goodness.
Feel free to shoot me a DM anytime, man. Like I said, it's you are right. It's a busy time. Like UFL podcast and around the UFL, like covering the UFL is wild right now.
There ain't no way that's happening.
No. that would be like bizarro world where the AFL was the higher end property than the NFL. But yeah.
Yeah. So everyone just remember, like, if there's any other stuff to learn more about the Arena Football League, here's a movie that has it. Actually, someone built an actual thing outside in this film, and people know what this movie is here in St. Louis. And then just a little bit of thing, if you want to find something, like go a little bit deeper, a little scene that actually has something close to Arena Football in another movie, that would be this one, Starship Troopers, in the beginning with the high school game there.
Who would have thought?
I don't know. To me, it's kind of like a football version of rollerball, how they play it. so
who would have thought, man?
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for everyone to jump in. Be sure to count next week here. Make sure to follow on X at STL Arena, Arena Football STL on Facebook. See you again with us here at Fuel Sports Network, along with Gateway City Sports. Have a good night.